I come from a long line of teachers. My grandparents were teachers. My mom was a teacher. I am a teacher. Even though education has changed and will continue to change, I think the human element and the connections you make with your colleagues and with your students is something that I have not found elsewhere.
Hello, and welcome to The Perch, where we highlight authentic voices, expert insights, and meaningful conversation. The Perch brings the Kinkaid School's mission to life through stories of education, leadership, and community. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Perch. I'm Mike Maury, and today we land right in the center of our students' education journey, the Kinkaid Middle School. Up on the perch today are three of Kinkaid's finest. We have Reed Harlow joining us from Kinkaid's Middle School Math Department. Reed, good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We also have Carly Riccobini from the Middle School History Department. Carly, good to see you.
Good to see you.
And we have Cedric Scott from the Middle School Science Department here at Kinkaid. Cedric, thanks for being on the show.
Thank y'all for having me.
How do you grab and hold the attention of those developing minds of middle school age students? Carly, what do you think?
I think middle schoolers are incredible because they've just got so much energy and so many ideas. I think one of the best ways I try to get students engaged is to really pique their curiosity. My favorite part about teaching fifth grade, I always say, is it's like they're old enough, they know how to read and write, and they're starting to kind of have their own thoughts and their own ideas. And so you can propose these things, whether it's questions or events or pictures, and it really piques their curiosity and kind of hooks them in.
How about you, Reed?
So for me, I really feel like it's important to meet them where they're at. The other day I did a fit check. I'm very unhappy to admit that, but they were so excited to see me just talk about the labels of my clothes, which if any of my friends from college saw it, they would probably never text me back.
Wait a second. What is a fit check?
So it's just you go through and you talk about each item of clothes that you're wearing and where you've got it from. Okay. So when I engage with the kids, I try to mix three things. I try to have a good humor about things. I try to bring a lot of energy, and I try to also be unpredictable. So the other day, we started a class on fractions, and immediately their eyes glazed over. So I thought of this old meme about how a dog would wear pants. Would it wear pants on its hindquarters, or would it be the entire four legs? And I drew this dog on the board, and then I could tell oh, their expression was different. I could actually do something at that time. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's about being able to laugh at yourself, being able to laugh with them, and create these fun little things together where they recognize that you're invested in them. They're gonna feed off your being real with them and being authentic, and they can totally sniff out when you're not like that.
Love that. Cedric, how about you?
For me, with eighth graders, I hit them with the complicated stuff first. It's oh, well, this is what you're going to learn, and this is what it looks like. Example, you calculate acceleration by subtracting velocity and divided by change in time. And so then I'm well, let's talk about what that means because of science. Science is so everyday. It occurs within our life. And so it's just me that making that connection to what they already know.
So, Reed, you're teaching seventh graders. Is that correct?
Oh, I thought you were gonna ask me to do another fit check. Yeah, I teach seventh grade.
No, I think we're done with fit checks, but thanks. And Cedric, eighth grade,
Eighth grade science.
and Carly, fifth grade. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about transitioning our middle school students, what that's like, what's that experience like for them, and how do you go about trying to smooth out that transition? Anybody want to take that one first?
Can I start?
You sure can.
Please.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all. So because I teach eighth grade science, one of the things I've really been trying to be honest about is having honest conversations with the upper school science teachers and asking them, okay, what are the things that you all look for within your classrooms that we can then filter down into the eighth grade science classrooms that will get our students more prepared for upper school? so that it won't be such a drastic knee-jerk reaction to what they need to do when they're taking biology next year. And so some of those conversations are, oh, well, they need to be able to recognize, parts of a system. They need to be able to do things like various calculations. I'm like, okay, we can be honest about that. And we can make sure we incorporate that within our lesson. But then at the same time, it's also like, okay, well, our students are moving from sixth to seventh and then seventh to eighth. Middle school as a whole is a transitory period. And so then it's kind of like, okay, what opportunities can we give them to kind of fulfill who they are as students?
Because you are in the science department and we have a new STEM center that is focusing on all aspects of STEM all the way across all grades at Kincaid. How do you connect with other STEM teachers?
Just a couple of weeks ago, our students did an activity where they measured their acceleration using a motion detector that they built within STEM class. And so that was an excellent cross-curricular activity for the students because it's like, oh, well, in science, in eighth grade science, we're kind of looking at, well, what do these position time graphs mean? And what do the changes in slope represent about the motion of the object? Well, here in your STEM class, you built the motion detector. Let's see how that works.
So, Carly, let's jump back down to fifth grade
Yes.
and the task of transitioning from lower school to middle school.
Yeah,
What's
so
that look like?
it's been awesome. I will say Kincaid is different because the schools I taught at previously, 5th grade was the head of lower school. It was the end of lower school. They were the leaders of lower school. So coming to Kincaid, it's like, okay, now they're the babies of middle school. So it's kind of a unique transition, but I actually really liked it because I think it just gives them a lot of time to grow. We also get new Falcons, new students in 6th grade. So I think 5th grade's a real I would say 5th grade's a really good time to fail. It's a good time to figure out strategies that work. It's a good time for teachers to give them a lot of, um, repeated directions and have them use planners and have them chunk activities and, like, what study things work for you in this class and how often are you gonna go to tutorials. So it's a really good time to figure out what strategies work before the content gets really, really intense. And they kind it's I feel like it's like a mini boot camp. So they have the lockers, but we're all in one area.
You mentioned a good time to fail, and that's so fascinating. Is there something that comes to mind? Maybe you could share an example. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think, for example, I don't know, you have a book report or you have a project and you did not get it done, whatever, soccer practice came up, gymnastics, piano, and all of a sudden you get to school and it is like end times, right? Like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna like lose these points, blah, blah, blah. And then we have a conversation. Hey, it's okay, right? It will be late. You're gonna miss, whatever it is, 10% of your grade, but it's a 90% is better than a zero or a 50%. So let's come in. I always say the biggest, like, it's not even a punishment, but the biggest consequence is to actually do the work. So it's like, hey, it's okay if you didn't get it done. It's okay if something happened, but you need to take accountability for that. You need to advocate for yourself. You need to go to your teacher and say, hey, I wasn't able to get this done. I'm still confused on this. I need more time. But then you go and do the work. So, like, for example, if they come and they're like, I'm missing a whole page of my research packet, it's like, shoulda budgeted our time better. Let's make a to-do list. You have this plus science plus math. So how are we gonna get this done by the next time I see you? And then we go through. And then next time it comes up, they're like, oh yeah, I knew that. History took me a little bit longer, so I need to make sure I start that earlier in the week.
Carly, you hit all the things that I think, like, as teachers, we're trying to instill in them because as you know, as a middle school, yes, content matters, but what matters most is how we help them build the right habits and mindsets for when the work really amps up. And so, like, it's time management, it's self-advocacy, it's kind of leaning into those uncomfortable moments when you're like, I don't totally understand this. This isn't that easy. Where do I go from there? And like as middle school teachers, we try to sort of like notice that in a kid's face when it's happening. We also have advisories where we build close relationships with kids so we can kind of keep an eye on them. But it's sort of like as middle school teachers, I think we do a great job of like noticing the pulse of the kids and when they feel comfortable and they have it and when they don't. So that like emotional reading, I think, is like crucial to be successful in the middle school. And we're trying to help them like stretch their abilities. The real value is like, okay, you're going to stumble, you're going to struggle. That's given. but how do you respond to that? And how you respond to that is really sort of like the tenor you're setting for yourself as you move through the place.
I love all of that. Pressure creates diamonds. And so we want to make sure that we're building tenacity within our students because not everything is going to be easy. And because that's not real life, sometimes you have to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Again, as they leave our doors and go on to upper school, there are going to be a lot more times where they are uncomfortable. They're not going to have all of the correct answers immediately. Sometimes it's going to be difficult. Have we instilled with you just the inner strength and the tenacity to push through and find a way?
We talk about educating the whole child. You three are doing that.
Hmm.
Everything you just talked about, that's just fantastic.
Thank you.
Could you share with our listeners something you do to help your kids become comfortable with learning to be leaders?
I think that it starts ultimately with belonging. When a kid feels like they're known, that they have a champion in a teacher or a faculty member, that they feel seen and valued, they naturally want to take care of that community. And I think that as a middle school, we do a really good job about centering their voice and about like enlisting their help. I love moments in class when I can tell a kid has understood a concept and can then help other kids. Like when I can give the reins over to a kid, I feel like that's like the highest part of my teaching is when I can actually be like, I'm not the lead sled dog anymore. You are actually helping us move this thing along. And that happens over and over again because I think as a s- as a middle school, we're really good about sort of cultivating their curiosity and then pushing it in these different directions. A lot of schools they just have like a student council. Well, we have a student council, but there's also an arts council. There's a sports council. There's clubs that a kid can form if he wants to. So there's so many opportunities for a kid to make a mark, to cultivate leadership skills. And I think that as a school, we're sort of leaning more into this servant leadership model of we're going to go out into the community. We're going to have a community service day. We're going to build relationships. And ultimately, the goal is to really get them understanding how to be an effective leader. You've got to be in it with the other people. It's not a hierarchical thing. It's not that you're in charge. It's that like your presence is lifting others up and ultimately inspiring them for good.
Everyone does a really good job at giving students an opportunity to be a leader even within the classroom, whether it's, okay, we're going to do a group project, but you're all responsible for this different portion. Or, hey, you have to come up with this idea together, but you're going to have to figure out how to do it. And, sometimes someone naturally takes the lead. Sometimes three of them naturally take the lead and they have to kind of figure out that ebb and flow. And I always say that leadership, but also that cooperation. I was like, no matter what job you do, whether you go to college, whether you go to trade school, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, whatever you want to be, you're going to have to work with people. Like there are very few jobs where you have to, be the individual. So leadership is definitely built through all the opportunities you said, Reed, but also on a smaller scale, sometimes even just within the classroom of like, how does it feel to lead? How does it feel to follow? How does it feel to share ideas and come to a kind of community decision sometimes?
Last year I was a sixth grade teacher, new to Kinkaid, and it was clubs. We were having clubs first trimester. And I remember two students come to me and asking, "Oh, Mr. Scott, will you sponsor our slime club?" And I'm sitting there and I'm
Of
looking
course.
because I was new to Kincaid. I'm like, I don't know if I can sponsor a club. And I look over to an administrator. They're like, sure, but it should ideally be related to science or what you teach. And I'm like, okay, slime. I'm like, oh, okay. So then, yes, we can have our slime club. We'll call it the non-Newtonian fluids club. And it went from there. Loved it. But what I loved more was that those two students who asked it, when I saw them in the classroom or within the club as leaders, they brought the supplies. They had the
That's
agenda.
great.
They established the tone. They led and they checked in with everyone. I just kind of sat back and I just marveled at what they did as students leaning into their own strengths.
Under our head of middle school, Charlie Gramachis, we have this thing called a commendable behavior report. And that's when you like notice something good that happens in the community. It could be as simple as holding the door open for someone. If you're table mates at lunch left it messy and you stay back and clean it up. We try to like call those out and be very specific and intentional about celebrating them. So like a kid gets a certificate, they get like a little Falcon Fuel treat. But the whole idea is to like call these things out and lift them up because it's like these are the things that like show that we're living our 4 core values.
So, folks, I found a quote from one of our Kincaid parents. They said, "At Kincaid, my kids feel valued for the very different and special skills each has. You can be a scientist, a dancer, a singer or an actor, a painter, debater, or an athlete. It doesn't really matter. You will be nurtured and supported, and your voice will be heard." What a wonderful painting, if you will, of the environment that you create in the Kincaid Middle School. Tell us a little bit about kids in your class that are exposed to arts and athletics and academics, and maybe how that works at Kincaid.
I think one of the coolest things that I've come to love about Kincaid is how much emphasis there is on the arts and athletics. I think it's amazing that athletics is built into the day. I've never been at a school like that. This year I'm actually coaching for the first time. So I'm helping coach 7th grade girls volleyball, which is fun, and hopefully basketball next season. And just being able to see, I haven't taught these kids yet, but I knew some of them from last year. So just being able to see them grow, and even if it's not their sport that they do outside of school, just kind of come together as a team and work together. And like I said, it's built into the school day. They're not, occasionally for games, they're here late, but for the most part, they're out at 3:45. I think is so, so important. Just building those relationships and, like we said, perseverance and learning a new skill. And then I also think VPA is just so, so cool. The fact that every 8th grader has to be involved in the production. And then even as a 5th grade teacher, just getting to watch my 5th graders watch everything that goes on stage and, oh, what are we going to do? Like, what do we get to be involved with? That's super cool. And right now, 5th grade, they actually do rotations. So the only thing like on the quarter basis is they do like creative movement and drama and music and art. And so they kind of get a little bit of taste of each one. And then when they get to 7th and 8th grade, I believe that's when they kind of get to be more specific of what they want to do. And I think just building it in and having students be exposed to multiple things, I think is just so important because I just think you don't know what you don't know, especially when you're 11 years old. And so you've never, it's like, oh, yeah, maybe if your parents did it or a sibling did it or an aunt or uncle did it, but really some of them never been exposed to playing the ukulele or like making an art thing. You're doing, I think one of my girls today said, we're doing field hockey and PE. Like they never done that before. So I think just building those in to the everyday school day just opens so many opportunities to give students a chance to really see what makes me feel like I'm a contributing member of Kincaid. So I think it's just the emphasis that Kincaid puts on it within the school day itself, I think is extremely important and beneficial.
Okay, that is so awesome. You get thumbs up for
Thanks.
like that entire statement. I love it. I don't know if there's really a lot to add other than Kincaid offering them this grand opportunity to explore those strengths, those weaknesses, those loves, right? So, I'm new to 8th grade this year, and I love the idea that the 8th graders all have to participate in the performance for the play, but they don't all have to be on stage. Some are behind stage, some are directing, some are doing lighting, some are doing sound, some are doing these different things, exploring these different opportunities. And then even within the day, because I'm always amazed with my students, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, at the end of the day, after you leave my class, after you've done all this thinking, I'm like, y'all have to go sweat and go participate in these activities that you're exploring and that you're finding whether you like or not.
So, Reed, I'm going to put you on the spot a little.
Go.
So, why do we do those things here at Kincaid? What's the payoff?
It's ultimately about the pursuit of excellence, like across disciplines. So you have, you know, the goal is to turn out somebody who can hang intellectually, who can bring it in their classes, who can stand out on a team, and who also has all this exposure to various arts. And the goal, I think, is to really have a life filled with like passion, where like you've been exposed to something. Maybe you don't love everything, but there's going to be something that really connects with you. There's going to be something that sort of like makes you feel like when you're doing it, it's not actually work. It's just something you love. And I just think that that's the broadest spectrum of things that you can kind of in an adolescent age, like, gravitate towards.
So, Cedric, earlier you were talking, I mean, you've made reference to,
My age.
well, I wasn't going to say your age,
I
but
said
just how teaching has evolved when you started teaching. What's new? What's different?
again, started teaching way back in 2002 when some people did not exist just yet.
I existed.
Oh,
This is
well,
like 6.
I don't know.
Okay.
Learning is a lot more collaborative now than it was when I was a student. We give our students more opportunities to work together because that really does reflect what's happening within life.
My high school years, I transitioned from a public school to a private school. And so the smaller class size and ultimately the relationships I was able to form at that private school, like, made a world of difference in terms of my engagement level, my fulfilling of potential, and just my feeling of, like, who I am as a student. And so I ultimately do think that while this profession has gone through so many shifts and changes, and I mean, now AI and various other tech is sort of knocking at the door for our engagement, I think that the basis of it, or like the through line, is the quality of relationships that you're able to form with students and colleagues is of utmost importance.
Like Reed said, just connection is kind of the biggest thing that stands the test of time. Like, I'm still in communication with my 5th grade teacher. Like, she's, like, one of my favorite people. And what do I remember from that? It's, like, 5th grade social studies, like, acting out the Stamp Act and the Revolutionary War and the kind of fun things. So I think as a teacher, trying to really bring in those things that are gonna be memorable, even when we know most of the content might not stick, the experiences, the feeling you get. I think, like you mentioned with AI, yeah, it maybe helps you with research, but is it gonna help you be a better presenter? How can we have that human connection? How can we really, push the people skills that we're gonna need, and collaboration and cooperation and that social emotional learning of how do we regulate and how do we advocate and things like this. So I think we need good teachers. We want, you know, it's the only job you get to go to where every day is different. Every day is a challenge. Every year is different. Every time new things are coming in and we have to make a million decisions a minute. And that's what makes it so interesting. And then you throw in the fact that you just get to hang out with kids all day and they're super funny and kind and hilarious and they're thinking things that you've never thought before, and it's like it's a dream job. And I think even though education has changed and will continue to change, I think the human element and the connections you make with your colleagues and with your students is something that I have not found elsewhere.
All of you teach different subjects at different grade levels. You have different levels of experience, but through everything you just described, I heard heart. I've got another quote here that just really resonates based on what I heard you say. And it's a quote from Aaron Bacall. It says, "Your heart is slightly bigger than the average human heart, but that's because you're a teacher." Cedric, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me again. This is a wonderful opportunity. I liked it.
Ray, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me on the Perch.
All right, you said the Perch. That's good. Carly, thank you for being on the Perch.
Thank you for having us. It was a blast.
All right, so that is a wrap for today. The Perch will return again in 2 weeks with new conversations and stories about education, leadership, and community. Be sure to follow us on social media, check out Kinkaid's website, and read the Falcon Flyer for more on how Kinkaid supports our students and our community throughout the year. Thanks again for joining us on The Perch.